No, my favorite
And we're
thing,
live.
Steve gives us a countdown like I care. I love that. Like, 30 seconds. And then Derek and I are talking about 10 seconds. I'm like, no, it don't matter, Steve. I'm gonna finish what I'm gonna talk about.
What's funny is that when I play with Cynthia and Kate, when I play Arkham Horror and I give them the 10-second warning, they immediately go quiet.
Oh, do they? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what I'm talking about.
And so I get the warning, but I was like, oh, with Barrett, it's for naught.
Nope, doesn't matter. It was weird the other one time we had a chat and you weren't available or whatever. It was like, there's no cold start. What's going on?
Like silence in the beginning. This is weird.
There's no upholding. Oh, sadness.
And welcome everybody to Co-op Guild. We're here with our cooperative chat. This is we try to do weekly live chat talking about various board game topics. So see lots of friends here. See Rook, Jess is here. Welcome. nice parent. Battle Cold Star. Nice. Hey Greg. Let's see what else I see here. Dirty, by the way, amazing roll, nat 20. That was really cool. And I got the loot working. Sorry about that, guys. That glitch. So I got it fixed. So.
Yeah, I just heaved my spear. That sounds wrong somehow.
I apparently ran into the wall. That's what I did.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah, you guys did a good job taking on the boss. So okay. We're here to talk about a live topic, and this one was suggested by Baron. I think it was a really good suggestion. You want to lead into this, Baron?
I did a good thing. Actually, I can't take credit for this. This has come up a few times the last time. We've actually gotten to do co-op chat and even some of the playthrough stuff that I've been seeing out there lately. And the fact that, it happened to us with Invincible. It happened kind of, Derek, was when I was listening to your Elder Scrolls, like the whole intro part of that game. And other games that have actually, and Mandalorian, for example, did the same thing, kind of. They're more of it's not really like an introduction, more as they don't give you all the game mechanics right away. So what we're talking about today is when you play a game and you get a game, is it okay to slowly sprinkle in the way the game is played, or do you like kind of having it all given to you at once? And the one game I can think of course, that almost, I think, probably started this whole extravaganza was that Jaws of the Lion. Because when people used to get Gloomhaven, it was built for, I'm not to say that I'm not putting anybody down or anything, but it really felt like it was a game for gamers. When you originally got Gloomhaven, because I read the rules, has all set to play this game, put this game down in front of my gaming group, which is my wife and my two friends, Karen and Eric. And I gave them everything. Like, okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to pick two cards, and then we're going to play these two cards. And one you put on top is going to be your initiative order, and all them explaining all this stuff. And all of a sudden they got this hand of cards like, what am I doing? And I have to explain this. But it took like, oh my gosh, I don't know how many hours just to get through that first battle, because they're like, well, then I'm going to play this. We're like, okay, that's great. So you can move up 2 and attack this guy. But but he's not there anymore. I'm like, no, he's not there. And so but Jaws the Lion, I played that with them. They loved it because it was able to learn those first parts, second parts, third parts. And then finally, you're kind of into the whole game, I think, by mission 3 or so. And they really thought that was great. So I think there's 2 different camps that do on this subject. So it's kind of where do we fall? What does the community feel is the best way to do this?
I think also, too, this concept of introducing more of the game over time versus the whole game at a time is going to be dependent on the game itself as well. Right. I think different types of games will benefit from that than others. Successful Geek has a comment here. It says, I want all the objectives at once, but mechanics can be spread out. Basically, I don't want something where I need to consider strategy change halfway through the game.
Oh.
Yeah, so that makes sense. Where I need to know what I'm doing for the whole course of the game, as opposed to halfway through the game. But by the way, you know that guy you just took out? You now need to save him, right? Or something like that. Which I don't know. I've had some pretty fun experiences with that, honestly. So I think I'm more open to that personally.
It depends on how it's presented. I think is the big thing. the Elder Scrolls, which it's a really great game. I think the part where it's okay, well, we're going to have this tutorial where they're going to handhold you through things, saying, all right, here's a bunch of dice. All right, you don't roll any of those dice. You rolled a 2 and a 3, and then tells you what happens. I don't like that. I like it to say, okay, here's the mechanics and kind of what you need to do. Roll the dice, and based on your outcome, so let me participate in the teaching. I guess that's a better way to say it.
Yeah.
Let me be part of that experience instead of being a spectator, and that will be a lot more helpful. Now, the trouble is with writing those types of tutorials, there's so much variance. I mean, even on a D6, there's so much variance on what could happen that you can't say, what's going to happen. Instead, what I've seen other things do is, move next this character and roll the dice. Once you take off 2 damage, which could be between round 1 and round 30, right? Then proceed forward with more stuff. And that is helpful in a way. But just saying, all right, pull this, build this. This is your character. Put this, set this, and you've built my character for me without my feedback. You've said my dice rolls without my feedback. All I am is the mechanic system of moving things around while reading. I'm not interested.
I would, if they ever do that, I would rather just be a book. Let me just read the book with pictures as you walk through it. I don't need to pull up the component and do that stuff.
And that's what this tutorial introduction was like. However, I'll say to their point that they said you can skip this and just start playing, but in that is another problem. So I've missed out on what your intention is to try to get someone into a game, so that I don't have to feel like a spectator, which why do it in the first place? And I think that detracts from a really tight, great story heavy driven game where the content is amazing. Don't hide that. Don't steer away from that for the sake of trying to teach somebody how to play a game. Just let them experience it. And in essence, that's kind of what Andrew Santoro did for us when he did the demo for us at Gen Con. Was he set us up, he was like, hey, pick any characters, take a look at it, pick any of this. It was our decision space, and then as we played, he just explained things to us as we went. Something like that could be helpful. Anyway, what do y'all think?
Dave's got a comment I'm gonna pull up here real quick. Comes down to complexity and crunch for me. A clear rulebook is fine for something like a roll and write, but bigger, heavier games can benefit from tutorials like Jaws, assuming they're done well.
Yeah.
So, yep, I think that's definitely part of it. I'll go out and say, Derek, I actively dislike it when they say, "Hey, you're making these decisions," and I can just walk you through step by step. Like when I see that in a book, I'm like, no, just stop it.
Yeah, and I think that it can hinder an experience for someone who wants to, but let me say it can hinder experience for someone who learns games like I do, right? And it was interesting, someone posted a comment saying it's not like a disorder or something bad, it's just a level of neurodivergence that I have and how I understand rules. And I was like, so you're probably right. And so it's not a bad thing, it's just I understand things differently, and if you do this, you've basically added a hurdle for me to learn things.
Yeah, David has a comment. Better yet, I'll just watch you guys play and learn that way. yeah, you have that capability. So.
Now, I have experienced this in all different ways, and I think some of them, like you said, I remember who it was. Said, I think it was Successful Geek. I think I'm on board with him, where it was like, depending on kind of how crunchy or how big this game is. I think one of the best ones I've ever experienced is ISS Vanguard. They had a whole like step by step, here's what you do. But then the way that, for example, Successful Geek then says, I rather have almost like an intro scenario where it's almost 99% chance you'll win this scenario. There's like no way you're going to lose, right? To learn how to do all these things on your own with the like mechanics given to you. And I think ISS Vanguard did that. And that was fantastic because they give you a step-by-step, here's what you roll, here's what you do, intro planet, right? But it also says you don't have to use these dice rolls. You can do it yourself and go through this yourself if you want to. And that's what I did. And it still was going through like, okay, so this particular card is about teaching me how to like move to another card. And that's what that card does. Instead of saying, okay, take your guy and move him over here and use this die to do it, I was able to roll up my dice, go like, okay, I'm going to use that die to move over here because it's telling me, but I had my own agency when it came to what dice I was going to use and what die I was going to do. But it still was the only thing you could do on that card was move.
Yeah.
So you're still moving like you're supposed to, but I had that agency to be able to do the kind of things I wanted to. And so I think that, but on the flip side, if you're a person that likes the step by step, you could roll the dice and be like, okay, now flip them all to these sides and now use that die like that's in the book. But the game, that scenario was so bent on basically you not being able to fail it that it was super good because I learned all the different mechanics of being on that planet without feeling like I was going step by step through a tutorial and having to do that. Now, of course, just after that first card, there was another card on like how to do a skill check like this. Then another card, how to do a skill check like this. Then the next cards were like, now go for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So I'll ask Steve. So what when we talk about art depends
what I have to do to you
because you didn't play the game, so that I'm gonna ask Steve about. So my question is when we talk about okay, it comes down to complexity and crunch. I'm gonna throw in Voidfall, and I'm gonna ask like, was that experience handholdy? Was it nothing at all and just kind of say read the rule book and good luck to you? Like, or do you think that needs a handholdy scripted, or the other way that Barton was just talking about ISS Vanguard?
That one was reduced in scope, so I would say it. They recommended going through the competitive way of playing it first before jumping to cooperative play, because cooperative play layers on more on top of that, which is unfortunate because like I don't want to play competitive. I just want to play co-op. Let me play co-op, right?
Okay, so that had a bad. That also wasn't the best showing for gateway in.
To the truth, but that one is very difficult to grasp. So, okay, fine. I put up with it. It's fine. Got through it. It was okay. But
well, in the scope of this conversation, would you have preferred a slow intro from a co-op standpoint, or
I dislike slow intros in any game, period.
Okay.
And I say that I feel like that is the solution everyone's going to, and I feel like the only game I've really seen it done it is V Sabotage, where they have the puzzles. I wish more companies did the puzzle approach. It is so clean, it works well, you don't waste people time, and the nice thing is you don't waste the scenario, because I feel like a lot of times in these games, scenario 1, 2, and 3, it's not the full game. You just skip to scenario 3 or 4 or 5, whatever it is, because it's the full game with the full experience, right?
Even Aeon Zen did that, and I think was it the I think I want to say like the legacy version of it. I think I might do it in more of them, but I know when I played the legacy, like, okay, here's the first mission. Now, if you're an expert in this game, just go to mission 3. I'm like, really? You only had? And then, okay, so here's the biggest problem with this kind of stuff. Here's the biggest stuff that pisses me off is the fact that soapbox. Where is it? So the thing that pisses me off the most is when they handhold me for like the first 3 missions. Like, okay, now go experience the game. Experience the game. I got 4 missions left and I'm done. I hate you so much. I know the first 3 were like, ooh, I can put all this together for 4 missions.
Yep.
Oh, but now wait, we can add a card to give you more difficulty. Woo! Like we've talked before, I'm a more person that loves the story and the dynamics of the game, not the I'm going to add a layer of difficulty to a mission I've played already. Like, I'm not going to need to read the story on this. I don't need to. Okay, I'm going to have to press the button on that machine. That's all I know I have to do. Oh, there's an extra robot this time. Sweet extra robot. Totally makes that mission worth it to play again. I don't know.
Yeah, like it's Assassin's Creed. I remember going through that one. The intro scenarios.
4
It's
intro
like,
missions before they even opened up the like what you're supposed to do, right? Now, for me, for some reason, Jaws of the Lions worked, and I probably because there was only like 3 intro missions, and all of a sudden you had like 25 more missions. I'm like, okay, that's enough. That's enough for me to still be more wanting to play that game so much, because there's still enough in it that's going to make me be okay with those 3 starter missions.
so I think if they do the starter mission stuff, they need to have a way of replaying the starter missions with the full rules. My opinion.
I know with Invincible they do that. Invincible, you can do that,
Correct.
but again, when you only have a certain amount of bosses, how many times can you play that same boss before you gotta go, okay? Like, I mean, Invincible is the same way. You had like 3 kind of, I think by mission 3, you finally got all your stuff.
Right.
And there's 7 missions or something. I'm like,
Right.
oh.
So basically half the game was rules
like,
grok.
Okay, exactly. It's like, like that's like, okay, we need to, but like it says, you can go back and add these 2 cards to increase difficulty and things and make it harder. I'm like,
correct. Yep. But I'll get back to the V-Sabotage thing, because I feel like that is a really awesome solution that is not utilized in the puzzle aspect. So if you're trying to teach, because oftentimes when I see these games, they're like, here's the game. We're gonna cut off these other aspects, A, B, and C. And then next mission, now we add element A. Next one, element B. Next one, element C. Now you get the full game. Cool. Move on. But what V-Sabotage did is they said, okay, you know what? We need to teach you how actions and line of sight work. They made a mini puzzle. It wasn't in the game at all. It was just in the rulebook. Here's the puzzle. Set up this stage. You need to get from point A to point B in 8 moves. And it was designed so that you would have to exercise what they just taught you in the rulebook. And I've seen this in other stuff like Magic the Gathering. There's an online version of it where they say, okay, you've got these 5 cards. Can you knock the boss down to like from its 8 health? No, so you're learning how the card mechanics work in a puzzling mechanic, in a puzzling nature. And the nice thing is it's condensed and focused, and it's not taking up a whole scenario slot in your actual gameplay for that purpose.
You know where they use that a lot? In teaching at school.
Yeah,
so it must be a good idea, right? Right?
It's been, but
the things to use it, and then you get to try it, and then later, sometime down the line, you apply it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think that though has been hit or miss for me, both in school and in board gaming. It's been hit or miss for me because I don't shoot to play optimally. I just want to play for fun. And if you play a game that's supposed to be puzzly to the point of, if you are optimal, then you will gain, then you will win. I will probably lose 7 times out of 10.
Well, this one's not testing optimal, just saying, hey, you should be able to fit this within this range. Yeah. It's not saying that you can actually finish a lot earlier if you play optimal, but that's not the point aiming for. So it's not an optimal strategy.
Okay.
It's just saying, hey, if you get the stuff, this is a reasonable range to finish it in, or whatever.
Okay, well that's better, because I've run into games where it's been one of the ones which Colin just put up at Meet Me at the Table is of his videos of Fate Forge, right? You got 3 rounds.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, maybe I might be able to do this as I'm learning how to play this game.
I think that's great, because then you kind of get a little pressure situation. That's the other thing is I'm not a fan of a game where it's like, all right, you have like all the time in the world to take care of this one thing. I'm like, all right, that's going to be
pressure is great until pressure becomes, until it's not. Case in point, Descent 2nd Edition. I hate that freaking timer, because it's okay. Well, there's this room over here. Well, you can't go look at it because you got like 3 turns before the game will end on you.
Yeah.
And
like that,
which is why I like open world sandboxy games. They have timers on them, but you get a chance to just kind of walk around and check things out for a little bit before the timer begins to pressure you.
Yeah.
And whatever path you decide to take is fine. Gloomhaven has that in terms of the battles because you could just move all you want. You don't have to fight anything. You could skirt around stuff and not take damage and get to.
But your timers are cards.
But your timers are your cards, and I'm fine with that.
Yep.
That mechanic.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I'm with you, Successor Geek, on how you have to save your good cards until the end of the scenario for Gloomhaven in most cases. Yeah, I agree with you.
I've actually found, believe it or not, I usually do it just the opposite.
Yeah, me too.
Big cards are the first part of the scenario. So I found that if you don't, you're like in that room for way too long. But of course, I haven't played all of Gloomhaven. I think I've only played 40 some scenarios, so I'm not an expert at it by any means. But so yeah, that's how I've noticed I play. I will admit I will save some of my really big cards for the end, but there's a lot of times where I'm just going in and going as fast as I can through that first room because who knows what's going to happen in the next rooms. Never know.
I think Greg's got a good question here. Might be fun to address. It says, do you think some games inherently lean towards one way of teaching the game due to its design, or could either method apply to most games? In other words, I think what it's getting at is if it's a big, heavy game, do they tend to always lean towards dripping the information to you versus a lighter game that doesn't do that? And I would say no. And I think a perfect example of that is Bomb Busters. Bomb Busters is a very light game. There's not a lot of rules to it. But in that one, they have tutorial missions in there. We're like, okay, we're not gonna play with the yellow or the red wire yet. We'll introduce that to you later on. But to that point, it is a deduction game, so they're trying to get you to understand the basic deduction system before they throw stuff in there. I don't know.
No, I think you had a point with that where no two games are the same, and how to teach them. I mean, you could teach somebody how to play cartographers in 2 minutes. That doesn't mean there needs to be a tutorial for it, right? But if we're going to the games that have the increased complexity, Gloomhaven's, SAS, or Elder Scrolls, or whatever other game, there needs to be some easy barrier to entry that does include some form of hand holding, but without making you a spectator.
Chris, it was a 6. I'm telling you. James.
Man, that was
that's so funny.
What are you doing? Why? It's like, because that's all it can be.
You were right.
Yeah, I just asked you for the number I have. But
I cheated so much anyway. Oh god.
You know, another thing I was thinking about when I was we thought about doing this was I wonder if a lot of the times the reason they have a lot of these scenarios and things is not only just to teach the mechanics, but I've noticed that as games have gotten as we've grown in the gaming community and games in general, I've noticed people like to have a tendency to win games. They like to win, right? Sure. Not lose. That's not a thing people like to do very often. And if you're those intro scenarios, you win. I mean, especially when you're doing the hand holding like Derek's talking about. And I know Elder Scrolls is a different horse because you're not really winning. You're just all of a sudden in Elder Scrolls, right? I know there's missions and stuff, but when I was playing Dawn of Madness, sorry, it's right up here. That game is like brutal off the start. It's like, all right, here's the rules. Fantastic. Let's go play the game. Oh my gosh, you got mobbed and eaten. Hey, that was great. And even says in the rulebook, you might lose the first game, maybe even 2, before you really start seeing the game on how you're supposed to, which options you have out there, how to do something, some of the different actions that are going to be like a different way of being able to deal with certain things, as opposed to just running in and smashing. You know what I mean? So I wonder if a lot of the games that have been coming out give those missions so that they have this idea of oh, okay, this is really cool. I have a better chance of winning these things. Like, what is the other one? ISO Farian Guard. I think other than Derek, I don't think anybody's died in the intro missions, right? They've made it through missions.
I did die in the intro.
Pretty good,
that's right? That's right. Yeah, I did.
So you have that high win rate. So then you get to your camp, and that's when the game's kind of like, okay, go for it. And all of a sudden you find Rock Lobster, and he's singing a song and eating your bones, right? And you never know when that something's going to happen where it's be like, oh crap, like I just died. Like, oh boy, okay, this game's real now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I need the if there's a difference between that and making a game hard for the sake of making a game hard. And my thing is I don't mind not winning. I don't win a lot, but I don't mind not winning. I just want that loss to mean something other than, all right, reset up and start over.
You like fail? That's a discussion we had before. Fail forward versus, or not even fail forward. At least an understanding of why you lost and how you can improve, or something like that. Instead of just like, oh nope, Elder Scrolls. Oh, I was supposed to dodge that attack. Okay, dodge it. Okay, oh nope, you dodged it. That's too bad. You didn't dodge fast enough. You have one that kills you in one shot. Oh, they're all the hits that kill you in one shot.
So the two games that I put in contrast on that, one of them is Isofarian Guard, where if you die, it's not game over. You just get moved to a specific location and then you continue on. They've done some updates on their nuance and some issues I had with when you lost, but the other side of the coin, the one that I do not like, and I'm gonna probably get a lot of people who vehemently disagree with me, including Barrett, is not Deep Madness. Deep Madness is brutal for the sake of being brutal, and if you die, you got to start all over from scratch. Like, okay, you lost the scenario, start over. Or well, you lost the scenario, start over. And after a while,
that's because that's not a campaign game. There's no reason if there's no failing.
That is a campaign game.
It's so loose. It's not.
There's actually a story for it.
but you don't carry things over. You don't do things. I mean, so technically, if you lost, Eric, you could just move to the next one. It's not telling you.
Which is what I ended up doing. Which is what I ended up doing.
You can't do that. It's just there's no benefit or not benefit of doing that. I mean, that's just how it is.
Yeah, it's just more that I have to feel that the loss meant something for me to want to keep going with a campaign game with a loss condition.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think that was I don't know how many people I know have played a mission in Gloomhaven more than once, or more than twice even. If they lose it, they're just like, we're done. We're going on.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm not resetting the stupid board and playing the same stupid guys again. And I'm gonna hit this guy. Oh, great! He's shield 4. Here we go again. We've seen this trick before. This is awesome.
and it's that thing of the longer the game is to play, the more that becomes real. Like if the game is going to, Gloomhaven's a good example of that, where a battle could take hours, but you lose the battle, and then what? Start over? No, thank you. We're gonna pack this up and call it. So. It all depends. I think it's just more when it comes to tutorials and walking people through things, I would prefer if there was a medium part where rules were I'm okay with rules being introduced slowly instead of saying, here's this 50, what's the thing from, you can read it in this 900-page document, as opposed to just saying, all right, well, I'm going to play around. You're going to watch me play around, and you're going to enjoy it. Yep. I think there's a middle ground there.
Okay, so here's one. Ready for this one? Okay, another game that introduces the game perfectly. I actually believe perfectly. I haven't seen a game laid out better than this ever in existence. It's Kingdom Death Monster.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
Why?
I was thinking that too. I was like, Kingdom of Death's intro is actually pretty good.
It's pretty good. They give you a specific deck you're fighting with, but it's not predetermined, except for that first card on both decks. And not only that, they give you just one weapon, one piece of armor, right? Perfect. Now you got a weapon and armor. You're going to learn how to use the armor and how to use weapons. On top of that, almost all the cards in the first node 1 monster, if it is able to, it usually has what the rule is in brackets for you on that card, which is another thing I think is really good. When you flip over a card or something from either monster or intro gear, like say there's going to be a like mundane, common, uncommon, rare, no idea where I got these names from, might be Madara. that when you flip over, when you're using the mundane cards, it has a lot more of those rules on the cards. But then as you progress and you get to like the common decks, a lot of those rules are gone because you've seen those rules over here. You know them by now in the common deck, right?
Sure.
And I think you've seen that happens in Kingdom Death a lot. Like the first set of bone equipment you get has frail. And it says right on there, if you hit a super dense location, this archive this gear. I'm like, oh, don't hit a super dense location. Got it. But like as you're playing and you open up the Phoenix like armor kit or something, and you got the finger of the Phoenix or something. I'm making names up. Please don't. And that's the frail on it. It just has the tag now. It doesn't have the stuff in the middle, in the bottom, telling you what it is because they got to fill it with something else. Like if you use a survival action, you can do like it has some super bonus on it. Now you got to deal with. And I think that. And then when you go to we just played that first intro scenario for Kingdom Death Monster, but it was a gambler's chest. That one does have a lot going on. But if you play the base game like I did that whole video series on, and you see that first settlement phase, it's not that intense. It's really just an innovation deck. You bring back a few resources, you build your stuff up, you go back out. Now that you've seen how all that works, you're fighting a level 1 light lion at normal difficulty, and it's going to come at you with you don't know what's coming this time, and it really kind of sets that stage as to okay, now you're in the game. And it really was that intro scenario with things written on. I think that's the other thing I love about if you're going to teach me a game with cards and tags
and symbols,
put it on the card. How many double-sided tokens do you have the same stupid picture on both sides? Oh, it's a poison token. Maybe on the back side says you take 1 damage if you have this token.
What about just making games modular? Honestly,
well,
so like,
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So like, I feel like when you're playing the intro scenario, it's like okay, we're playing with reduced cards and reduced equipment, all that stuff, which is fine. I think it's a good solution, but why not just make the game modular in the first place? Meaning that like, hey, we recommend in your first games to only play with these elements in the game. When you're ready, add these other elements. You can choose when to do that. And you can choose to do that in the first scenario if you're comfortable with it, right? Like, why restrict out of the gate? Leave it up to the players to do that.
Well, for in Kingdom Death Monster, that's because that's the game. The game is building your civilization.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just saying generally.
In general, okay, in general. Because like I know I alluded to Madara's stuff. Madara does it in a unique way that actually worked for me as well. Madara gave you a rule book. I read the whole rule book. Madara puts you in a 4-mission intro, right? Once that intro is done, then they actually take stuff away from you and put you, and then you're able at that point, you're given 4 predetermined characters of 4 predetermined gear. After that, they pull everything from you and say, here's money, here's some an experience. You can choose to buy what you want. Or you could continue with what we have originally given you, and we do give you the money and experience to go on with that if you want to.
Right.
And I think that's another really good way to do it. It gives the person, again, freedom of choice once you get there, but also every piece of gear that they hand you at the beginning of that game is introducing the rules that you've gotten from it. So almost that reinforcement. Like all of a sudden you have your like, oh, I can dodge, I can block, I can like all these little rules are there. I can heal, I can re-roll I can re-roll dodges, I can like all this stuff is in there. All the things that you would have learned through your rule book. And if you didn't know it, they do have actually a whole. They don't sometimes put a lot of stuff in their cards, but they have that whole like. They have like two-page thing worth of tags you can read through them if you really wanted to. And usually when I play, spoiler, it's over on the table over here.
No, that's a good point. I forgot about the intro for Madara, but that's a really great point where it's, here's the intro scenario that's just kind of the segmented piece that you can play and you can keep going or you can I think that's a really great point to that.
Like, for example, say you did your Elder Scrolls, and they're like, okay, here's what you're going to do going through it. And then once you're done, but we're going to give you all these things. And then at the end, we're going to take away, and because you came out, now you can go to your first town, and we're going to give you the options to grab all that stuff again, or you could build out your own character and do whatever you want. And I know, and I think they kind of say you can do that in the game. Like you don't have to use what we're giving you through this hand holding thing. You can do it all on your own. But when you're doing the hand holding, at least once you leave, you're not just okay, there's your guy, go have fun.
And that was so I think for the Elder Scrolls one, I think it's easily fixable for what they have because it's just more Here's the rules to combat. Here's the jailbreak scenario. Play because when you finish it, they heal you to full and they give you all your stuff back.
Right.
But the thing is that they continue on hand holding you scripted as you play, where it's more like, to your point, Barrett, just let me play it, and when I finish, if the thing says, well, re-back up to full and go on to the next segment, that would be a better thing. And that's what I ended up doing.
Yeah.
I ended up doing just that, just playing it without them telling me what I'm going to pick or what character I should be or anything. And it was actually a better experience for that. So my recommendation to people who are going to play the game, if you have difficulty with the scripted methodology, if you don't stick with what they've given you, but if you've had difficulty with the scripted methodology, then just set up the scenario, play it when you're done, heal back up to full, and keep reading. And that's it.
Jason's got a good comment I want to get to before we move on too far here. It says, do co-op games benefit more from having a tutorial in order to help onboard groups of players of different skills and comfort levels? I kind of feel like it doesn't matter, honestly, because when playing a cooperative game, I'm normally not trying to learn the game at the table. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I always try to learn the game first before I bring other people to the table to introduce it to them. Mm-hmm. So I don't think a intro scenario in that sense is helpful for my approach.
Yeah.
How do you guys teach games? I guess is the question.
I bring back Jaws of the Lion. My group would never have played Jaws of the Lion if it didn't have that intro thing to slowly introduce them. And I just again threw them a deck of cards and said, pick a card, even though I've explained kind of how the whole game works.
But do you sit down and open up a game and play it without reading through the rule book? With other people?
I just don't know how you would do that.
Well, if the game's intro is good enough that you can, and then you just use the rule book for reference.
You can look at the rule book later. No, I don't think so. I think I'm going to read the rule book. I actually read the rule book before I even pull the components out, and then I'll kind of if I'm reading the rule book and I'm not sure of what the heck's going on. Yeah, I do, Steve. That's good. So I don't know. I think that's yeah. I would need to read the rule book first, at least because I know for a fact just from art. Now, if I was the player coming into it, like which a lot of times I'll go to Collins and for game night, he has to teach us the game. So he's read the rules. He's played the game even once or twice. Usually it's why he wins all the time, but he'll like explain kind of how the rules work and everything, and then we play the game. So yeah, he would have to have read the rules, and even like I said, he might give it one. He might play it with Monica once the night before just to make sure they understand all the parts of it. Now, when it comes to co-op, that's usually we're playing competitive games, but even with co-op games, the same thing. Somebody does need to know.
I'll say for me, it's based on the game. Let me expand on that. So,
see, Derek never takes a stance. He always goes.
well, the reason why is because it's not black and white though. It's not black and white.
Yes, it is. Everything is.
You do not.
They don't know how to play the game.
There's no try.
Like everything is. Life is black and white. Okay.
That's right. Either win or you don't win.
Here's the reason why I'm saying that. For if someone understands the core mechanics, I don't need to know everything. So, case in point, Arkham Horror LCG.
Mm-hmm.
You understand how card play works. You can play a scenario and learn the rules of that scenario while playing it. So I don't need to know how the scenario plays perfectly for me to play the game, right? Or I don't need to go to the rule book to understand what those are because the scenario will explain it while I'm playing it. When it comes to games that and I say the same thing for probably all the LCG games that Fantasy Flight Games put out. Do you go into the rule book and read what everything does for that specific scenario before you play it, or do you play it and learn the rules as you go? A lot of the games, but for games like Elder Scrolls, for games like Madara, you probably should read the rule book before you start playing. However, I like the idea of a game that says the rule book is your reference and you can play the game and the game will teach you how to play it. And
Yeah.
like that would be ideal. That would
I
be very ideal, but I don't know many games that do that.
no, I guess what I think we get a little off topic because I think we're kind of veering a little bit because Jason
Oh,
clarified it. I
sorry.
was thinking
What was it?
about the other players in the game, not the one leading it. Does the tutorial level help someone in the group that is newer to games in general, while the others may be more experienced, right? Because the concept is you're learning the game together as opposed to like one person teaching it to everyone else. And
Hmm.
in my experiences, that's
Come
not
here,
been the
Derek.
case. As long as somebody, there's a Sith,
Come
there
here.
he is. As long as one person has the knows the rules, we're good to go. So
Yes. Yes.
there can only be two.
Stop me out.
As long as one, yeah, I agree with you, Steve, on that. As long as one person knows the rules and is a good teacher, because from your two experiences that you've told me before of playing with someone who knows the rules and it not working out that well, if someone is a patient teacher and knows the rules, then yes, I agree with you.
Yeah, because I feel like I don't know. In my experience is if people are newer to the game and they're trying to understand it, and it's especially if it's co-op, it doesn't really matter because there's no like competitive edge. They don't need to know the whole rules going into it. They can learn as they go. That's nice about co-ops because they have a question, you just stop and ask. So I don't think the tutorial missions are necessarily have a benefit in that scenario that Jason's alluding to,
Mhm.
as long as one person knows, right? Um, that's kind of where I'm leaning on. I Tim's comment here, I think aligns with you, Derek, quite a bit, and how you learn. Where he says, "I want to read rules as little as possible before getting to play, and then learn as I play. I don't want to read 90 pages of rules and then play." So, I'm very much the opposite. This is where Derek and I are very different. I will
Man,
read the whole rule book, sometimes multiple times, before I sit down and play the game.
madness.
So,
Well, no, it depends on the game. Because no, I'm kidding. I'm just sounding like Derek.
But rule books are if rule books are if the rule book doesn't have an index, oh Tim, that oh gosh, it makes it so much harder for me to understand the game if the rule book doesn't have an index
Yeah,
because
yeah.
rules are scattered everywhere. So it's all right. Well, this scenario occurred. What happens then? Index. Damn it. Somewhere
That's
in
the
this
beauty of
96-page rule book is the answer to my question.
That's the beauty of player aids a lot of the times. And that I've actually one of my favorite player aids I saw, I don't remember what game it was they actually gave like the rule about it a little bit, like the little blurb for the tag or something. And then in parentheses even had a page number next to it.
Oh,
Ooh, that'd
that's
be
really
cool.
nice.
I was
That
like,
would be
that
cool.
was amazing. Like actually
Yeah.
was able to just turn to the page if I still had more questions
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it didn't answer things properly. I was like, that is something more people know. It's again just like the tokens. If you've got a poison token and it's a dual-sided token, put that stuff on the other side. It tells me just right there. Just tell me what it does. Then I don't even need the player aid. I got it on the token.
Yeah, that's just good UX.
Blows my mind. Like,
David, I'm a rulebook nerd. I've read rulebooks and never played the game. Love them. I can associate with that, David.
Someone mentioned uploading the rulebook to Chat GPT in lieu of an index. Interesting.
Oh, interesting.
Huh. And then just have Chat GPT tell me the rule and they can look it up.
What does this do? Boom, boom, boom. There you go. That's not bad. That's
can
not
you
bad.
do that?
I don't know. I've never tried it, but I'm gonna try it now.
Yeah.
Especially if you can find a PDF of the rule book and you can just go zoom and stick it into like a Word document, and then zoom, put that into ChatGPT.
Yeah. That's not a bad idea.
I want to see how ChatGPT does for like ambiguous rules. You know, the rules that you just can't fully. The rule book is contradictory.
It'll probably tell you that you could. It's going to make you a rule about the goblins over in the forest that you have to help with the woodcutter or something. Whenever I tried to use that to try to work on D&D stuff, it always have this like, oh, I think I got a great idea. Why don't we have the goblins in the wood be we're dealing with the woodcutter? I'm like, why is it always the woodcutter? Why are you always thinking the same thing? Why can't we think outside the box, GPT? And I never used it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rulebook reading is, but to, like I said, slow or all at once. I'm in between.
I'm not.
I think a set a. I think the idea that Barrett put forward is probably the sweet spot for me, where it's give me a set of scenarios that are tightly contained, that introduce things and teach me how to play without playing for me, and then after that's over, I have the option to keep going with what I have or dump it and re-up and continue on my adventure. I think that is ideal for my play style.
Well, I'm curious though. What about the puzzle idea? Do you? I said that like it's a focused example. Focus actionable examples.
If you can make it,
Yeah.
if the example is made in such a way that you can't really fail it, then that's fine, because then you could try different things as you retry the puzzle. Like, maybe this might work. Well,
Yeah.
what if my character can do this and I get
Well,
to try
there's
out
no
my class?
There's no failing. It's just like, hey, do these things with these pieces in this map setup or this scenario setup, or play these cards to
Oh,
get 20 damage, right? It's
okay.
not. It's no like pass or fail. It's just figure it out.
Yeah, sorry. I thought you were saying like do this within this set of time. But
I mean,
no,
you
if
could do
it's
that, but
Well,
if you say
damage or
by
something.
the end of by complete this objective by doing 20 damage to this creature,
yes,
here's some stuff, figure that out, I'm okay with
yep,
that.
that's
Because
exactly what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
that lets me be inventive, and
Yep.
I like that.
Dan actually has a very good point at the end here that I wish I could do more. I am actually very similar to the way his friend is. He says I lean toward Steve here. I read the rules sometimes multiple times, then play. My friend, he sets the game up and starts moving stuff as he reads. It's amazing.
I'm that.
I like to do that. The problem is I can't. I don't, because I don't have the, I can't keep, because usually it would take me a few days to learn the game, and I can't keep it on the table that long. Because my kids, it's not fair to them to not be able to use the table and things like that, right? And on top of that, table space is a premium. I need to get like more tables in my house. Is Robin listening?
I'm expecting her to pop up just saying no.
And so if I could, I mean, I know that Colin does that. He actually reads the rules, then he puts the game on the table and starts playing a little bit of it to see if he gets the idea of how this all works before like he introduces it to us, right? And if I could do that, that'd be awesome. But a lot of times I don't have that opportunity to do that. I would love to be able to do that. Like I did that with Burn Cycle, and then I took Burn Cycle and went into the box, pretty much like that. And I've done that with a couple other games. I put them on the table and try to really learn the game, and I'm just like, no. Or else I have it on the table like, yes, recording this now. You know what I mean? So it's kind of really cool. Meet me at the table. I don't have.
No, read it all together.
What's this?
Meet me at the tables I don't have.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I need to get more of those. That's the deal. That's the deal. So, I mean, that's another way to learn. And then having tutorial scenarios based on that, is it better? Because then the tutorial scenarios are really just for you.
Yeah.
To move those things around.
Yeah.
But of feeling like you have to play it with your group or something like that.
So I'm going to throw a wrench in all this because we've been talking about from our own perspectives. But what about?
Sure, it's not. Well, it depends on the game.
No, not this case. This is great, but it does depend on. Does it depend on your intended user population? Like, because right now we are arguably experienced gamers, right? I think it's a safe thing to say.
Y'all too, yeah.
So, I mean, learning, adapting, we have this common knowledge set, right? When approaching games. If I say the word deck builder, we kind of have an idea of what to expect.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people out there that don't have that experience to pull from.
Yeah.
And so learning a game is going to take more work to build that foundation first, right? And so I guess the question is, do you think that some of these tutorials are added to games to try to approach a wider audience that aren't experienced gamers?
No, I say no.
It's just trying to. I mean, I think the goal every game developer has, I would believe, is to get their game into the hands of as many people as possible and have as many people as possible enjoy the game so they can encourage other people to get into the game, right? That
Right.
would be every creator's dream, right?
Right.
So if you can put different avenues of entry into a game, it would probably be best. And I think that where it comes with playtesting and feedback and things of that nature, you're going to need that to hopefully get to that point. But not every game is going to be for everybody. We already know this. That's why there's like
Well-
music. Not music isn't for everybody. Some styles appeal to others and some don't, and that's why there's so many different types of music and games out there that, like you said, Steve, once you kind of get into the hobby, kind of like once you get into listening to types of music, you kind of find the music you like, or you kind of find the games you like, and you kind of gravitate towards certain keywords on a game, like co-op. I'm going to start gravitating towards that. What kind of co-op? It's a 4X co-op. Oh, that's interesting. I haven't tried that before. Let's see what that's all about. Well, now I'm entering into 4X territory, which, by the way, I'm never more than a 1X type of guy. And so it all of a sudden I find this where I start learning. I'm like, not for me, but now I know, kind of thing. And I know that that's not an avenue I'm going to want to pursue. Even with a good tutorial, things of that nature. But case again, like you said, trying to introduce people that don't know. Like we were learning Sushi Go last night. Sushi Go is a pretty simplistic pick and pass type game, right? And you're drafting, I guess not drafting, but you're like getting your things, you're scoring points, right? Pretty simple. But when I said we're going to do a pick and pass, this is basically a pick and pass type game. They're looking at this. Like, okay, let me explain what you're going to be. Just I had to back up and go like, okay, let me explain what pick and pass is. So you're going to take a card, you're going to put it down, and you're going to pass the deck to the next person, and then you're whatever card you have, you're going to flip over, and you're going to do that. We're going to do that until the decks run out. Oh, okay. So then they finally got what that was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, another thing is that I said a lot of things, and I don't know if I really went in circles or if I ever answered your question or if I just wanted to hear my voice. I'm trying to figure out what the three things are.
I'm going to push back a little bit, Barrett, on what you said there.
Good, because I don't even know what I even said.
So I think there is a tendency for people to say, you know what, my game is going to hit the public in general. And I think that is a recipe for disaster. I think you need to come into the design space saying, I'm targeting this audience, and define what that audience is. It could be the general public, but it doesn't have to be, right? And you can be successful if, to me, a successful game is one that knows its intended audience and tailors to that audience. So again, back to this topic of like having a tutorial mission in there, that might not be necessary if your target audience is experienced gamers. Right. It might just be like experienced gamers know the stuff. They're just going to want to skip it anyway. Now you're adding this potentially somewhat negative experience when that's not what you're aiming for, right? On the flip side, if your game is designed for people who may not be familiar with games in general, then yes, you might want that because you might need to introduce these over time, right? So I guess the one I'm getting to is know your intended audience and design towards that audience.
I think especially if you're making bigger games.
Yeah. Because a big game like Gloomhaven.
Oh, I don't think Sushi Go is a really easy, anybody can pick up and play type game.
Exactly.
So that, like you're saying, that one wouldn't, that falls in a different category versus, okay, guys, here's how Madara works.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Well, okay, what is this game? Like, oh, okay, we just Sushi Go. What do we play next, Madara? Okay, how does this game, like all of a sudden, and is this a real-time strategy game? No. Is this a pick and pass game? No. Am I going to like this game? We'll find out. Like, in your wheelhouse, I'm just gonna throw you in there.
Yeah, I mean, Sky Team does a pretty decent job of that too. Chris, that's an interesting concept. I thought about building my game library to have simple games to introduce every major mechanic just for onboarding new gamers. That's not a bad idea. But that idea ties directly into what I said earlier. This whole puzzle to teach mechanic, like you can teach deck building in a very, very focused manner, as opposed to having to have this whole game around it. Teach this piece. Teach this other piece. Teach this other piece, right? Have these in the rulebook as quick examples you can try out. And if you feel comfortable with it, skip it. You don't have to have this whole scenario. You have to worry about it. Just jump into it. That's what I'm very adamant on this puzzle approach. So.
This is the way.
But okay, I want to also get back to the Sushi Go option, because Sushi Go is designed for a wider audience, right? I think that's we can safely say that. Now, it's also designed that way to have less rules for that purpose.
Yeah.
Anyway, so a tutorial isn't needed.
No.
So like, if we have these lighter games that are designed for wider audience, but tutorials not needed, we have other games that are designed for experienced gamers that may not need a tutorial. Like, do we need tutorials?
You know what?
Yes.
I think who is it? I think it's David and Remy. I think are talking about this. Where like, yeah, if you're good at these type of games, do you need that? Like, I know like Aeon's End when you originally were playing that, like you can skip to 3 if you want to. But I'm like, at that point, I was like, I'm not skipping to 3. I want to play the whole game. There's 7 missions. I want to play the whole game. You know what I mean? So, but I know the first time I'm gonna be like, boo, because I'm gonna get through these without even a problem, right? But like you're saying, with Buzz Line, you could skip those 3 missions that you're learning how to play the game if you know how to play Gloomhaven. And then if they're going to do that in a campaign game, I wish they would have like a, okay, if you're going to skip those missions, here's like then like have that story in the storybook, like in a book or something. Because I don't like
Madara does that.
What?
Madara does that.
Yes. I want the story that you miss if like, okay, I'm missing these 3 scenarios.
Yeah.
I want the like 2 pages of that story that I'm missing then before I start my 3rd mission. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where, for like you said, Madara has it, but you don't have to play the missions. You could read those stories to
get caught up.
I would just rather skip all that and just, if I'm going to go to mission 4, I want like last time on Madara that we didn't play. Things happen. And I know they have the spark notes, which makes it really cool. Because they can just be like bing, 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 bing. It's like a bullet point thing that you go like, oh, okay, you get the idea of what's going on. I don't know, Steve. I know that worked really well for you. That way you didn't have to listen to the like 35 minutes of dialogue. You can just like, okay, what are we doing? Here's what's happening. Oh, okay, cool. I got it.
That's not much a tutorial. That's just a way of conveying the narrative.
That's something totally different. But I know it worked really well for you to be able to do that because you're more interested in wanting to see the mechanics and how the game works, but still have an idea of why we're there.
Exactly.
I think tutorials are necessary when done right. They are necessary, and for specific games. Not all games need them.
Depends on the game.
As I'm saying, like, if you say necessary, what does that mean?
Yeah. So,
how do you define necessary?
You don't need it for Sushi Go, but you'd need it for something like ISS Vanguard, or you need it for...
Yeah, so necessary meaning that not everyone will learn the game the same. So it's like, okay, well, read this rule book and you'll know how to play the game. All right, cool. I'll see you in 3 weeks. And then if I still care to play the game, I'll play it. Or I could just grab this side box that is tutorial, put it down on the table, and immediately learn by doing.
Mm-hmm.
That is the perfect scenario for me.
Yep.
Like Chris says, use concepts that people understand. Like Dice Throne's great for inexperienced gamers. Hey, you know how to play Yahtzee? Good. Okay, take that knowledge, which most people know how to play Yahtzee. Or like, hey, you know how to play. I mean, but you've seen it. You know what this. It's like, oh, have you ever played Candyland? I have played Candyland. Okay, well, to take that knowledge and we're going to kind of twist it a little bit. If you don't want to play Yahtzee, here's 2 pages on how to play Yahtzee. Oh, okay.
I actually learned how to play Yahtzee by playing Dice Throne. I'd never played Yahtzee a day in my life.
But I mean, but now when anybody says, "Hey, this is a Yahtzee style game," you go, "Oh, I know what Yahtzee style game means."
Yeah.
Even though you learned it through that particular game, certain keywords I think help when it comes to teaching games to people.
Yeah.
Sure. I said this is gonna be a pick and pass game. No. Passes. Where before I haven't used that term before, but I've used the term draft. Like we're gonna do a card drafting game.
Yeah, draft. I know, not pick and pass.
So then, like we played 7 Wonders, we've played It's a Wonderful World, things like that. So we know what drafting is and stuff like that. But I'd never really used the term pick and pass.
Is pick and pass and drafting the same? Oh, we're so off topic, but I just gotta ask: is pick and pass and drafting the same thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it?
I think the reason I used it in that game was because drafting seems to have a lot of stuff that carries over and interacts with each other. And I know Sushi Go kind of does, but it's really, it's a very, I would say it's probably one of the easiestly grasped, I guess you could say, drafting game. Because remember the last time I introduced drafting was 7 Wonders. It's a Wonderful World, things like this. That those are way bigger games, like that you need to use resources from other players, and your board has things you can create, things like this. There's nothing like that in Sushi Go. So you pick the card, you put it down, then you flip it over, and that's your card that you draft. I guess they drafted or picked.
Sure.
So I just use that term, I guess. But
I've also never played Sushi Go, so
that's okay. It's a competitive game. It's pretty. I mean, it's super easy.
Oh, I don't mind competitive games. I've
I
just
know
never
that
played.
we played like four. We played 4 rounds of that, including teaching in like an hour.
That's good.
Easy.
That's good. Yeah, easy to learn.
Play. And I didn't win at all. I lost every game.
I want to highlight Tim's comment here. I think it's a good one. For me, tutorials are basically examples of how to play. I learn from examples, not from theoretical concepts. And I think the best rulebooks I've seen or come across and gameplay learning experiences have been based around that, examples. Like the whole puzzle thing literally is the example focused. Sword and Sorcery, I think, is an excellent rulebook because it's a huge rulebook, but honestly, it's huge because it has a concept and it has like 2 or 3 examples after it, which is super, super helpful. Right. I think for Derek, you might even agree with like how you do have to do hands-on learning, but that is playing through an example. So
yeah. And your example of that in terms of the puzzle and the objective, I can get behind that.
Yeah, having examples in rule books is really good. The thing is, though, I want the example to almost have some of the outliers that could be, which actually Blue Knot Sushi Go did. It was like, oh, okay, so whoever gets this gets the most points. And if you tie, you get these points. For example, Joe has 6 of these things. He gets 6 points, but Steve and Derek have 2 each. So they're actually going to get 1 point each because you don't round. Instead of just saying, oh, this person gets 3.
Exactly.
Tie. Tie is in the example. Got it. Okay, it's like they kind of do some. Now, of course, Sushi Go is a way, I would say, easier game to grasp when it comes to rules, as opposed to something like Madara, where there's a lot of outliers, or chip theory games, Elder Scrolls, or even Voidfall, or things like that. There's going to be more outliers that they can't put them all in the rule book. But at least if you have some of them while they're teaching, would probably be best.
Yeah.
I got a question from Chris Rodress, and we'll probably get closer to wrapping up here. But Chris has a question. Have you guys used Dized tutorials at all?
Yes, I've used it before. I've used the app before. It's hit or miss for me with that app. It's a really good teacher for people who want to use that app to learn the game. And it does provide itself with it's an app for.
Okay, so let's start with what this is. I've never heard.
It's a tutorial app for games. Somewhat, it's like a side created. I think it's a fan created app that you could download on your phone, on your tablet, and it teaches you how to play a game.
Yeah, so it's professionally done now. I think it was originally fans like that started it, right? And they became professional.
Well, I think it's now this person's business, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it's his business. Yeah.
But it's just more, but it started off as kind of a pet project and it turned into a business. But it's really great.
Free.
It's free. It is free.
I'm going to download
it. But the thing of it is it's a hit or miss for me. It does teach you the game, and there are some games that it works really well with. Miss is that I like app games. I don't mind app games, but when you're breaking my attention away from the table, you're jarring me out of the immersion experience, and so therefore it sometimes puts me off to where I just say, okay, I'm not going to do that. But I get why people like it.
Yeah, we need to run smooth house calls. Yes.
No, he would never make a house call to me because you know what he's going to tell me? I'm going to leave you to discover the solo rules on your own.
There you go.
It's like, you're no help to me, Rodney. You're no help.
Yes, I've experienced that myself. Look at that app. I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, I used it once, and I had similar experience to you, Derek, where like I see it being very useful for a lot of people, but for me specifically, it wasn't something that I would utilize. I think it comes down to is it's a little bit like narration, like audio narration in stories, where like I can read a lot faster than the audio narration moves.
You talked about this. At Gen Con.
Yeah. And so like it's really well done. It's really great. And I feel like the Dice Tutorial is the same similar situation where like, okay, I know this stuff. Let's move on. It's taking a while to get to the question I really wanted to answer, right? If I could skip
Yeah,
to it, then cool. But it's not really designed well for that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. And you
I
talked.
think in
I think it was you and Colin who talked about it at the Gen Con when we demoed a specific game where it was, I can read faster than this thing is reading. Is there not a 2x button that I
yeah,
can speed up the
I
voice on
talk
this?
about that all the time. That's the one reason why we don't use narrations when we do live streams. We'll never use a narration because one, we can read faster than that thing will ever go. I mean, don't get me wrong, foreteller's amazing, but
Yeah.
I don't need like, okay, so I have a card that has like 3 sentences on it, and here's how it starts.
Oh, Fire.
yeah.
I look to the dark and I see
Yeah, it's really well
the
done.
voice peering at me through the trees.
That's and Tim's right. If
Above me
Baron should use no narration products because having a Baron narration or having a Baron pronunciation narration game is a must. I think Foreteller should hire you to do some of the reads because
they should
it's
have
gold.
Crocodile Connections.
a separate company. Instead of foreteller, they should have farce teller, and that would be me. I could be said correctly. It's all read wrong.
Oh man, that was great. That's great. I actually asked so after I finish this one act in Elder Scrolls, I'm going to do a different province starting at level 1, showing a different character, different stuff. And I asked them, and it was, should I go to Cyrodiil and just call it Crocodile?
It was so close. So close.
So good. Okay, so I want to recap this up a little bit. So, summarize your feelings on tutorials. Derek, you start.
Contained like Madara, puzzly as well as acceptable, like what you mentioned, Steve. But do not script me in terms of all I am is just the hand moving things around. Let me play the game. So there is a middle ground for that for me, but I think tutorials are necessary.
What about you, Barrett?
It depends on the game.
He had to do it.
Why does Derek even allow me to hang out with him? So bad. I'm so mean. I think I'm in the same boat Derek is. I think you're also getting potentially a skewed representation here because we are huge. We are gamers. We are actually, most of us are the ones in charge of learning these games. We are the ones in charge of teaching the games. So I think for us, it's a little different element. But for the way or at least I like to do things, I like having a rule book, read it, boom, go into there. But I like that rule book having examples. I like the rule book having those ways of doing it. If I could put games on the table and push things around while I'm reading the rule book, fantastic. Not going to happen very often. So then when I get to that game, I have to make sure that rule book is with me at all times. And I feel bad if I don't know all the rules when I'm trying to teach it, because something that can really break immersion is going into a rule book, trying to figure out something that's kind of minute, but actually is going to make a big deal in that turn. So I think I like having player aids that are going to do that with the page numbers, tokens with things written on the other side, which helps as well. Anything that would really speed up the fact of learning the game. I'm going to check out this Diced, whatever this is, app.
Wow.
See what it says.
That was powerful. Do that again.
Diced. What's all about? So yeah, I mean, in general, I think maybe I just am able to learn games in multiple ways. And so the only thing I don't like, you said, is that scripted thing. I think that was one thing that maybe pulled me out of Burn Cycle so fast, was everything was all scripted. Okay, now move this guy over here. So it's cool. I was moving these things around, but still in the end, I wasn't really doing anything. That's
yeah. And I think the thing I run into, Baron, here's where you're like, you like to read the rule book and then have it close when you're playing. To me, I read the rule book and then I go to play and I'm like, okay, what page was that on? I don't know how to do that.
right.
So I prefer to just learn by doing. But I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, and that you're adaptive.
To do it, but a lot of the times, like for example, when you did your Elder Scrolls tutorial thing, there wasn't anything out there. So it's like you're at the mercy of your own being.
Yeah.
And a lot of that happens to us when we're doing prototypes, which is pretty rare for me. But if I do a prototype, there's a lot of times I'm at the mercy of myself here. I don't got anybody else where I can go like, oh, okay, that's how that worked. Like I can watch another video and be like, okay, that I didn't quite get that. But also when we're doing prototypes and things, developers want it to look successful and they want to succeed. So I've never met a developer that's not like Johnny on the spot with a response. I'm like, okay, I don't quite get how this interacts. Boom, here's how it does it. I'm like, okay, got it.
One thing, Baron.
I'm at like midnight and I'm like looking at like 11 o'clock and I'm not just the guy. And I get an email back at 2 a.m. I'm like, oh, I was asleep by now. But he was like, well, what were you doing up at 2 a.m?
And not just developers, the community. I mean, a lot of the stuff. Yeah, a lot of the Elder Scrolls rules that the community helped me understand it a lot. So I'm very grateful to them for that.
The other thing you do, Baron, too, for prototypes, I found this helpful, is if there's a content creator who's already done a video, having the developer send you that video privately has been very helpful.
Oh, I never thought about that. That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, because obviously you don't share it out because it's not private, right? But normally they have access to videos already, so just ask for one of them. I found that very easy. If you
ever want to work with that group again, then you can send it out there.
Yeah. So
they'll be like, I hate Meet Me at the Table. I'm never using them again.
Whoever says that's obviously insane. So.
Yeah, I'll jump in.
What about you, Steve?
Yeah, I don't like the hand holding thing. Actively dislike it. Get it out. Can't stand it. Like nope. I would say tutorials in general, I would say is a usual nope for me, honestly. And it's because of how I learn games. I learn games. I read the rule book, and then if there's something I don't understand, at that point I'll pause in the middle of my reading rule book. I'll go pull out the cards or pull out the components and look at them and see if that helps answers my questions. If that doesn't, I will literally set up a small scenario in front of me with the cards and try and play through it a little bit from what I understand at that point to try and make sure I understand it. That's like level 3 of me trying to understand things. And so that's where getting back to like the puzzle thing, that is how I learn anyway. So I'm very biased towards that, having focused examples in there. Because the other thing about tutorial I don't like is I feel like I'm losing a scenario that I actually do enjoy. Because the scenarios I enjoy, I won't have all the elements or the elements I want involved in that. So if you have a tutorial and I can't add the other elements, that's a pretty big negative for me. Like, so I don't mind if it's modular where it's not there to begin with and I can add them later. That's okay. I'm okay with that, but give me that option.
So, but what if like the tutorial scenario is one scenario, right? Let's just say it's one, and it's so easy that if you had everything, you would just stomp the game and it would be no challenge to you at all. You're still fine with that.
I'm okay with easy scenarios. Easy and difficult doesn't matter. That's not part of my equation here. Okay. I'm just trying to learn the game.
In general. If it's learning, for sure.
You are way smarter than me because it's just more the if I don't understand something, I'll Google it. That's just learning 101. And if I can't find that and I read, and this is me learning something like read the rule book, read the card, I don't set up a scenario of it. I just then go to the internet, search and see, ask on the Discord, see if anybody else. I go into collaborative mode. I guess that's probably a better way to say it is if I don't understand something, me still hacking at it is not going to help me understand. It's going to make it worse. So my brain switches to collaborative mode. Hey everyone, this is what I'm running into. Here's what I've tried. Here's what I don't understand. Are there any thoughts on that? And then I let the collaborative thing happen. But if it's just kind of, I will set up a scenario, I will do all these things. I guess in coding, I guess the way to do it is they call it rabbit holing, where I go down this rabbit hole, try to figure this thing out. I feel like for me, and I'm not saying anything for you, but for me, it feels like I'm wasting time. So therefore, instead I throw up a flare and just say, hey, I need help understanding this.
Yeah.
And then another thing that sometimes I do, and you've seen it in my videos, I'll just take a stance. I'll be like, okay, I'm not exactly sure how this works, but we're gonna do it this way. Let me know in the comments below if this is wrong, and I'll make sure to put like a subtitle or a message. I'll say that in my video because sometimes eventually I get to a point where like not exactly sure how to rule this, so I'm just gonna go with it. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
you make a judgment call at that point. Yeah.
will come up forward and say like, yeah, that was exactly how I would have played it, or heck, what about if we try, what if I interpreted it this way, and I'll read it and be like, oh my gosh, yeah, actually that's right. Or the other, or I'll be like, I can see where your interpretation comes from, but I'm not exactly sure. And then of course, if I'm getting multiple mixes in the comment section, then I'll go to Board Game Geek again and go like, hey, how does this work? And a lot of times you'll get stuff, and then that community, you'll get instant boom, 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 boom. I don't do a lot of Discord where I'm just not good at that.
Well, so Joe said something really good, because what Steve does lend to this outcome, which he says he's always impressed with how Steve knows the game rules when he's playing it. It's because Steve does those methodologies that it becomes ingrained in his mind on how this thing works. Once he figured it out, boom, he's got it. All right.
Yeah.
Repetition is my perfection.
Guess check is mine.
Repetition.
I use guess and check.
Guess and check. Yeah, I don't guess because half the time I'm wrong. So it's more the, if I keep doing it, I will become super proficient. It's the reason why there are some games I can just answer the rule question right out the gate because I know how it works. But with Steve's, I think because you deep dive and you break it down to its base elements, that you're able to just
that's his passion as well.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Derek, if repetition helps you learn the game, would replaying tutorial scenarios help?
The mechanic. It helps me learn the mechanics. So if I've already got the mechanic, replaying a tutorial is not going to do it. It'll solidify it, but after a time, there's a margin of diminishing returns.
That makes sense. Yep.
But yes, for me, if you've got a game that mechanics are tight and I'm constantly playing it, I will get those rules like nobody's business. And that's, I don't know if that's considered common denominator type things, but it's just, that's how I get it.
I know, Derek, you're saying I was smarter than you. I vehemently disagree with that, because we sat down and played Voidfall, and you picked up that game way faster than I did. So...
I had a good teacher. I didn't have to go through what you went through, because you broke down the basics of that game to where you understood it, and you and I played games long enough that you know how to teach a game to me.
I did pick up how you learn games. That's true.
So I think it's because you I had a good instructor when I played it that I picked it up so quickly. Now, if Voidfall was to be set down between you and I, and neither of us have played the game, you'll probably learn it faster than I do. And I will probably go to community. I will go to more community understanding than you will. Like, for instance, I turn to you a ton and be like, hey, I just read this. I'm not following. What do you think? Instead of you being, I'm going to do this, set up the scenario and learn this thing, and then I'll get it.
Yeah, it's interesting. The setting the flare for help is a very different approach in how we do that. I totally see that. That's a good analogy for sure.
Yeah, it was inserted into my head as a developer, where it's, if you're spending more than X amount of time on something, you're doing something wrong.
Definitely.
Raise, shoot up a flare, ask for help, and that's gone into
it. Dan's asking someone to come and tap and teach him Voidfall. So
that'd
be fun, Dan, for sure. Maybe I'll bring Voidfall Gen Con sometime. I know Colin wanted to play it, but it's such a big game.
I think Dan would love Voidfall.
I think so too.
I think he would love it a lot. Too.
Mike, I do this too, with similar as you. So I learn a game by doing setup and learning through the book as I go. Let's take a random action first play and learn that way as I look up and read the rules for each action. I'm kind of similar, where Baron brought this up. Like, if I don't know the rule, I'll make a call and move forward if it's like a little bit ambiguous. But if I'm learning the game, sometimes I'll just like, you know what, I'm gonna do this action. Strategy wise might be horrible, but whatever, I'm gonna do it. let me understand what this works mechanically through the system. So
the amount of for me, like, that raised anxiety because if I do that, the amount of rule book jumping I would have to do to figure out everything
yeah,
that does.
yeah,
Oh my gosh. I was like,
that's
nope,
true.
not learning that
That's
way.
Good chat, guys. Okay, I think that's a good way to end this one. What do you guys have coming up? Derek, I start with you. I think you have some Elder Scrolls, I'm guessing.
What? Never heard of that game for a
Yeah,
day
what's
in my
that?
life.
What's this?
I'm playing this unknown game called Elder Scrolls Betrayal: The Second Era. No, I'm playing that tomorrow, and I think this is the last Black Marsh scenario that I'll be doing. I've been really jonesing to play Marvel Champions and Marvel Legendary, and I need to get that done. So after this, I'll probably clear it off, play those, then put it back on, start a new province, and keep the Elder Scrolls love going because it's a really great game. What about you, Barrett?
Colin does all the videos now.
He's a machine, though. Colin pumps those out.
Colin is a machine. He is a machine. The man has a full-time job, soon to be 4 kids.
Yeah, well, I talked to him, and he and we have a really good working understanding, which is amazing. That's why it has been so great to have a partner like him in this channel. Like I told him, it's hard for me to find some times. I've been really hanging out with my kids. Really stays up to like 11 p.m. now. We got a new 40K starter set, so he's really excited to play some 40K. He's like, I'm going to get there in my life someday, and that'll probably when your kids are at college, you'll have all this extra time. So don't sit back, enjoy your summer. I was like, that's really nice of you. So we've got, and not to mention it, I mean, we do our live stuff together. So I've got Kingdom Death, the Lantern Year 1 coming up. That's going to be coming up, but there's a lot of games I have on the table that I'd like to get back to. 7 Citadel right here, I'd like to get back to. I get a lot of messages from people saying, like, when is this game coming back? Like Isofarian Guard's another one I'd like to get back to. That one is another one. Those are like 2 of the games I want to get to, because I really I want to get, like Colin says, a lot of times when we do these recorded ones, we get something newer and we stop really focusing on like the campaign we're on. And that's one of the things the live streams really helped us do, is focus on a campaign game and play through it. And it's worked perfectly. We've gotten through almost every campaign we put on the table. But off live, I want to get back to this one. I get back to the Isofarian Guard. There's some new stuff. Like I really want to play Harakari, but I want to play it like as the campaign, not just that one-off scenario that I did.
Okay.
So there's a lot of other stuff. I mean, I was planning the beginning of June. I was planning to do Mr. President. Nope.
You still haven't done that yet.
I got that up. Nope. I've had that on my table twice, and that's an hour-long setup to just go swoop. Right? But I think Ridley wants to record that one with me, so that might be something we do during the school year. Together. Like Derek and I think the best way I've played that is with you.
Yeah, two players the sweet spot for that game.
Like I think like 2 lines on that thing, but it was super fun to do that. And like I think the funnest part about that is we both have this idea of kind of like, okay, so let's do this so we can have this thing. I rolled a 1. That's not going to happen then. That's really bad. Kind of thing. And then we just have to go with it, right? So there's a lot of games I like to do at the table. And once school starts up again, I think I'm going to have a little bit more time to do more recordings. But until then, the house is being held down by Colin. He's got a lot of cool things coming up, which is really cool. I don't know what they are. So that's so. I know we're doing Kingdom Death on Wednesday. That's the plan. Steve,
what do you got?
We missed out on Flaming Fangs scenario 4 last week because Kim wasn't quite up to feeling great, 100%. She's feeling a lot better now, so we'll get back to that on Monday, and that will probably be the last stream for Flaming Fang. And then I want to do one more stream of SAS on Wednesday. Earth Under Siege I got the shipping label already, so that should be delivering next week. So that will be hitting our channel the week after, and that I plan to play through a good chunk of that campaign for sure. So
okay,
that's what I got. Okay, guys, it's been a pleasure as always. Any other parting words before we end the stream?
Join me.
Big girl, me too. Oh, I left that side open. So anyway, all right.
Oh my god,
what is happening? On that note,
I try to stab you through the computer screen.
Robin, Barrett needs an adult.
Now I need to
All right.
hold the camera off. No, that's a good
Thanks
idea.
for watching. We'll see you next time at the guild. Bye bye.